Welcome to Living Your Greatness. Each episode, we bring on great people to inspire you to achieve your greatness. We discuss topics all related to health and wellness. Listen to world-class stories, learn valuable lessons, and turn knowledge into action. It is now time for you to unlock your inner greatness. Welcome back, everyone, to the Living Your Greatness podcast. Today, we got a special guest. Her name is Erin Harris. For those of you that don't know who Erin is an entrepreneur and has been self-employed running her own business since 22 years of age. Erin is the studio owner of SoulSpeak Yoga, digital founder of SoulSpeak Online, and digital media consultant at Erin Harris Media. Erin understands what it takes to turn visions into reality and is excited to bring new ideas to life. So Erin, welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. It's a pleasure to have you on. So Erin, we're just going to start off today with the first question here. Tell us about yourself. Where did you spend your formative years growing up in Canada? What inspired you to become an entrepreneur? And why did you start a business in the mind, body, and fitness industry specializing in yoga?
Yeah, so I live in Ottawa right now, but I grew up in Kingston, Ontario. So I actually moved here for school. So I went to Ottawa U. I did communications there. And kind of leading up to all of that, I didn't really have any idea at all, actually, what I wanted to do. But my whole life, I kind of had this idea that I would end up doing something involved in yoga. So my mom is actually a yoga instructor. So I grew up in yoga studios for as long as I can remember, just in studios that she was teaching at, or all of her best friends own studios. So I kind of just grew up hanging out in the studios while she was teaching or doing kids yoga classes. So yeah, it just has been part of my life for a really long time. My dad too, he doesn't physically practice yoga, but is quite involved in a more spiritual way. And he actually brought me to India when I was 12. And I was kind of introduced to that whole side of yoga as well, and the ancient cultural history of it. So it's been a really big part of my life. And for a really long time, I wanted to teach yoga. So I knew that was something I at least wanted to do. And I think obviously owning a yoga studio, when that's such a big part of your life, is kind of the dream. But it wasn't a set plan that I had. Like, it wasn't like, when I turn this age, I'm going to open a yoga studio. I really didn't have a plan at all. I really just wanted to travel for the most part. Like I worked full-time in school so that I could save money and travel in the summer. And I was just kind of doing that. And then right when I graduated, I had the opportunity to open the studio, and I just knew that I couldn't turn it down. So that's kind of what brought me into it.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Erin. So that's kind of how it kind of got introduced to you. But what has been like the journey for you?
Yeah. So I think, it's been a part of my life. And then when I was in grade 7 or 8, I actually ended up having a pretty serious back injury. So I have a herniated disc in my back, which now is very manageable, but at the time was not manageable at all. So I kind of had to stop doing everything that I was doing. I was dancing competitively my whole life. And that was like my big passion, like what I wanted to do and what I loved. And then when I found out I couldn't do that anymore, I was obviously heartbroken. But you know what they say, like, one door closes, another door opens. Like, there's always a reason for something to happen. So I started getting into yoga because of that, as a way to help my back and just as something else to do. And I started actually doing what's called Bikram yoga. I don't know if you're familiar with like the different styles of yoga, but it's not practiced as much anymore. I'm not going to get into it, but if you look it up, you'll know that there's a little bit of controversy behind the practice and the people behind it. So it's not very popular anymore. I think all the studios in Ottawa have closed now. There's still one in Kingston, so my mom still practices there and whatnot. But that's kind of what I started with and how I got into it. It's basically this really, really hard, challenging practice It's really hot, really humid. It's the same 26 postures every single class. And you're basically just like drenched in sweat and like kind of dying the whole way through. And for some reason, I fell in love with that when I was in like grade 9 or so, just as a way to like physically challenge myself again. And it felt really good for my body. And yeah, so I started doing that regularly throughout high school, while doing some other kind of fitness stuff. And then it wasn't really until I went to university that I started to find this spiritual or emotional connection to yoga. So when I came to school, there was a yoga studio kind of close by me called Elevate Yoga. It's still there on Elgin Street. It's a beautiful studio. And that's where I kind of started to experience classes that weren't just for the physical practice, but were more so for the mind and spirit. And I found some teachers that I really resonated with and that I just really connected with. And yeah, that's what kind of changed the game for me with yoga. And I think something that I find too, a lot of people will try yoga and they maybe like don't so much get into it, but I find that it really connects with people and people really start to bring it into their lives when they're kind of going through something a little bit. And then they find yoga and then it's just like this, they're like, wow, this is really what's going to help me through this. And I think I was kind of going through a phase like that in my life too. And it just stuck. So yeah, after I did that, I had the opportunity to get my yoga teacher training and I, again, couldn't pass it up. So that's how that evolved.
So how has yoga changed and what do you feel it creates in your daily life?
So it's an interesting question because there are so many different aspects of yoga. There is the traditional practice and this whole idea of having like a daily practice that you commit to every day. There's the mindfulness aspect of it. That could just be your meditation or your moving meditation in your practice. There's the physical aspect of it. There's the community aspect. So I think at so many different stages in my life, it's changed who I am and my daily routine. And I wouldn't say that just one aspect of it or one kind of situation or scenario changed that. So yeah, it's kind of, I always find that like a hard question to answer when people ask that because there's just so many things and I guess it's kind of accumulated over time, but I think the biggest one is definitely the mindfulness aspect. I think it's like so many people these days struggle with anxiety or stress, what have you. Like mental health is just such an important thing that we need to work on, especially this year. I know so many people who like haven't normally had problems or struggled with mental health, and it's just been such a hard year. And I can't say enough how much a mindfulness practice has helped me and how much I've seen it help other people as well. Like even just starting a meditation practice for 5 minutes in the morning or journaling for 5 minutes in the morning or before you go to bed, or just having that like minute in class before you start moving where you're just kind of focusing on your body. It really goes into your everyday life and like how you look at everything else that you're doing. So I think that's the biggest thing that has kind of changed my life or changed my outlook on life and my perspective. Yeah, it's a really small part of yoga and it's often overlooked because a lot of times people go into it for the physical reason, which is why I started yoga too, was more so for a physical practice. But once you find that, it's pretty powerful.
It's nice to kind of hear, that background of kind of how you got into it, how it's kind of changed and been part of your life. So why did you decide to start teaching yoga? And what qualities do you feel are important to build and work on as a yoga teacher and influencer?
This is actually kind of interesting timing. I was just looking through since I've been moving, I like going through all my old books and journals and like seeing what I wanted to keep and throw out. And I came across my journal that I had during my yoga teacher training. And there was one question that they had us answer. Like we always had these periods where we would have to write and reflect during the yoga teacher training. And one of the questions was, why do you want to be a yoga teacher? Like it's like such a simple question that can be such a complicated answer. And I looked back on what I wrote, and it just simply was, yoga changed my life and made me so happy, and I want to bring that happiness to other people. And that was kind of like, I looked at that and I was like, oh, that's so sweet and so simple. And just like that was really it. Like it really, really had an impact on me and changed my life. And I just wanted to, even if it was one person, I wanted someone to experience that. And yeah, as a new yoga teacher, it can be very overwhelming because there's, like I said before, so many different aspects of yoga and so much to learn, so many different avenues you can go down as a teacher, so many different styles of yoga that you can teach. So if anything, I would just say like, enjoy it and try not to shove everything into your brain all at once. Like when I started teaching, I remember every time I took a class, I'd get out and I would like be on my phone or in my notebook, like writing down everything the teacher said and like trying to take it all in and remember it and like write down their sequences. And I think the biggest thing that I like to say to new teachers is like, it's all in you. So don't worry and don't stress about whether or not you're going to remember everything you learned in your yoga teacher training, because you won't. It's impossible. Like you learn so much. But when it needs to come out, it'll come out. And when you go in to teach, it'll come out. And as long as you're living that and practicing that, it's all in you. So, yeah.
Great. That's awesome. And so what is SoulSpeak Yoga? Why is this business so important to you?
So SoulSpeak Yoga is a yoga studio, but it's kind of become much more than that. When I opened this studio, I want to say that I had this huge vision and I'd been working on it for years, but I hadn't at all. Like, I think the practice and what I'd been working on was just like an accumulation of my life and my experiences. So I think I was ready when it happened, but when I was given the opportunity to open the studio, I think I had like 2 months to figure it all out. And then we were open. And when we did open, I didn't fully know what it was going to be and where it was going to go. Like I figured out some branding, I figured out some teachers, some volunteer staff. We got the space built, and I wanted to create this yoga studio in my way, in the way that like I like to teach and practice. But it really just turned into this incredible community. And if anything, if there's any greater purpose to SoulSpeak, I would say it's that. And yeah, it's anytime that I talk to anybody about it, that's the kind of response I get as well, is that it really created this kind of community for a lot of people and this sense of like stability and a place to go to. And it wasn't just a place to go and like stretch and move, but it was kind of like this safe little sacred space. So that's why it's become so important to me, because it's not just a job. It's not just like a passion project. It's like really become my life and my friends and my community and what I get up to do in the morning and what I'm excited about. And because it's not just for me, it's for so many other people. And I can see it helping other people and changing other people. And there's like nothing more rewarding in the world than that. So, yeah.
Absolutely, for sure. So during the pandemic, many local businesses shut down. How were you successful at pivoting your business model?
Yeah, it's been a year and so many waves, so much has happened since we originally shut down, especially my mindset around everything too. Like I remember 2 days before we shut down being like, oh, we'll never close. Like, this is never going to happen. Like this is crazy. And then it actually happened. And I was kind of like, oh shit, my whole life is what's going on? Like, how long is this going to last? Am I going to see the community anymore? Like, how are we going to navigate? And I don't know, the universe always has things in place for you. That's may sound a little new age and some people don't believe that, but I'm very much so like, if you let what the universe is giving you happen, then take it. So when we closed, I was having a conversation with one of my teachers. One of her friends is a videographer, and he offered to come in and film some yoga videos for free for us, like some classes. So we went in the next day, we filmed some content, and then started with just like the most basic online platform that we possibly could. And this was also a way to support the teachers because they fully lost their jobs. Like none of the teachers are on EI because yoga teachers are contractors. So it's not like they were just like, oh, I can just go on EI or continue to be an employee, because it's just not how the yoga industry works. So there's all these teachers who were teaching full time. That was their income. That was their life. And that was just completely gone. So I really wanted to find a way to like continue to support them, whether it was like donations or giving them an opportunity to still teach, even if it was just a little bit. So we started this really basic platform. I think we were like putting videos up on Venmo or something. I actually don't even remember, like it was such a blur. And we donated half of the proceeds to the teachers, which was a way to still kind of give them a paycheck for that month or those 2 months. And people were so generous, and it was incredible. Like the support from the community when we closed was just, I was blown out of the water. But we started with that. And then I knew that that wasn't going to be sustainable, like just putting these videos up here and there on Venmo. So we switched to a platform called NamaStream, which is like just kind of a basic streaming site for yoga studios. So we were able to create this whole on-demand platform of videos, and teachers would either film at home if they had like decent equipment, or we set up a little recording studio that was like very basic, and I had to like edit the crap out of every single video because there's so much background noise and the audio was horrible. But like we did it, and the videos were like pretty good, and people could practice to them, and we were making enough money to be able to still pay like our rent and like our bills. We did get quite a bit of government support as well, but you have to pay that money back. So it was like some of it you don't, but we were like, we need to make sure that we're still bringing some kind of money in here. So, and we're very lucky too, as a yoga studio, to be able to do that. Like I know a lot of restaurants don't have that opportunity, or even gyms who use a lot of equipment. Like yoga, you can just roll out a yoga mat or a towel and you can do it. So we were really lucky in that aspect. But as the year progressed and other online studios started to develop, and we realized that we needed something a little more consistent, because this wasn't going away in 2 weeks like we thought it was going to. We started to think of ways to advance the online platform. So I think it was when we closed in October, we were a little bit shocked because we had opened in the summer, and although things were not great, like we went from having 30 people in our room to 7 people, and there was all these restrictions in place, and it was pretty hard to keep an in-studio business running. But when we closed in October, it was like we were so blown and shocked, because we just didn't think that lockdown was going to happen again. Little did we know that was going to happen again like 3 more times. But that's when we decided to do live classes. So we started live streaming not only the classes that we were running in the studio, but we were live streaming classes even when we were in full on lockdowns. And then that platform wasn't really working for us. So then we decided to switch to another platform, which is what we're using right now. And we were able to fully customize the site and brand it in our own way. And it's actually like SoulSpeak Online when you search it in Google, rather than like NamaStream, and you have to find all these things. So it's like, finally, we have our own platform. It took us a year to get there, but I think we needed that to be able to navigate it and figure it out. And now we finally have daily live stream classes running 3-4 times a day. And we have over 200 videos on the platform now, and workshops, and lots of teachers and all that. So I can finally say that I feel like we're in a good place, but it was definitely hard. And kind of figuring out all that audio visual stuff as just someone who is like a yoga teacher and decided to open a business and then was trying to do this now. there's definitely some tears, but we're here now and figured it out. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it sounds like you guys really navigated, right, a lot of different challenges and kind of overcame them. And I think it's also been for the better too of like the future of your brand, right? In terms of anyone, not only from Ottawa, but anyone who's listening right now, they would be able to now do your workouts. So that's pretty amazing. So that's awesome. On your website, and I also know what you guys stand for, you guys are a lot about, connecting with your soul, right? And doing soul work. So in yoga, there are 7 chakras. And I know your studio really values those 7. Could you please share with our listeners what they are and how to balance them with yoga?
Yeah. So this year, especially, we started a class specifically that was based around the chakras, and it has a little bit of yoga in it, but we actually pivoted into doing some more fitness style stuff just because that's what our students needed. Like, they weren't moving their bodies as much, and they were needing something that was a bit more active. So we started this soul work class, which is based around music, and it's a little more movement based, but it really relates to the chakras. So quick explanation of the chakras. It's going to sound a little new age, but bear with me. They're referred to as these energy systems within our bodies. So the word chakra actually means wheel. So it's said to be like this kind of wheel in the body, and the chakras are these spinning energy discs that correspond to either different kind of bundles of nerves or major organs or areas in our bodies that affect emotional, physical, mental well-being. And there's said to be 7 of them that kind of run up the body. So it starts with the root chakra, going to the sacral chakra, and it leads all the way up to the crown chakra. And it's said that when these chakras are kind of blocked or not working properly, that's when we start to run into physical, mental health problems. So yoga is a way to unblock the chakras. You move up the body by doing different postures, different breathing exercises, different types of meditation. So I'm not going to go through all of them because it's going to take a little while. But for example, like the root chakra, we start at the base when we do our soul work practice. And the root chakra is all about grounding. So we do grounding, slow movements, and then lead up through a few. And then, for example, we get into the chakra that represents like personal power. And that's when we get into more of like the powerful movements, strengthening movements in the body. And it leads to the heart chakra. And that's all about opening the heart space and whatnot. And eventually leads to the crown chakra, where we finish off with a meditation and a reflection. So that's our way of physically moving through them. There's so many other ways to do it and different practices, but I like that because you can visualize it happening because you're physically doing it within your body. So yeah, if anybody wants to look more into it though, like just search the chakras on Google and you'll get so much information, but it's really interesting. It's a really kind of ancient practice and philosophy, and there's different histories behind it too. So it's definitely worth looking into. It's quite interesting.
Listening to the right playlist, it could change your mood, your day, your whole being for a moment in time. Yoga, on the other hand, helps you relieve stress and can ground you after a difficult day. I've noticed that you, as well as like the rest of your team, has a passion for music. So why is music important during yoga? Do you think music changes your yoga practice?
Yeah, so I love this question because it's definitely something that really was a big thing when we opened SoulSpeak. And when I started teaching, definitely when I started practicing, this was not a thing. And when I started teaching, I don't remember there being a lot of teachers or studios, even, at least not in Canada, that were teaching to different kinds of music. There's teachers who would play like kind of that yoga, relaxing, like Shavasana music. But I didn't really find that as much. And then I started going to some classes where I saw teachers introducing that a little bit into the way that they were teaching. And I just was like mind blown. I was like, that was the coolest thing I've ever done. Like, it was such an incredible way to express what you were feeling. And yeah, even at like my yoga teacher training, I don't think like we ever listened to music. Like it just wasn't part of what they taught us or like what we should do. And like I said, there's so many different avenues of yoga and teachings and beliefs. And I think the way that yoga is moving right now in our culture is a little bit away from the traditional practices of yoga, which has its downfalls, but also invites opportunity for it to be more accessible for other people. So when I started teaching, I started to slowly introduce like different types of music into my practice. And then when I opened the studio, I was kind of like, okay, this is really my chance to teach the way that I want to teach and show people a practice that changed me specifically, and just kind of hoped that other people would kind of vibe with that or respond to that. And another thing too is I knew so many people in my life were like, I know yoga is good for me. I know there's this mental aspect to it. I know that the physical benefits are incredible, but I just can't get over the yoga, like, I don't know how to explain it, but people were like, it terrifies me to like this idea of going into a yoga studio and like it being silent and not talking and just like that traditional yoga feel. They were like, it's just not me. So when we started SoulSpeak, we started doing like hip hop yoga classes, fun themed yoga classes. Like I think the first one we ever did was like Justin Bieber, which is, it sounds so stupid. And I think like 50 years ago, if someone was like, this girl's doing yoga to Justin Bieber, they would be like, what is going on? But it got so many people into the studio and trying yoga who were terrified to do it or who would have never done it before, because it was something fun to do with friends. It was something different. It was something interesting. And then they did it and they were like, oh, wow, I actually love this practice and I actually feel amazing after. And I'm starting to notice those mental mindfulness habits coming out in my day-to-day life. And I'm starting to like feel better in my body. Like, and that was the coolest thing for me. Cause I was like, yes, we're just trying to make it more accessible to people who would never want to try it. And especially like a lot of guys too. Like I found when we opened the studio, I was not expecting there to be so many guys coming in. And that was a really awesome thing to see as well. So yeah, I think it started with me trying to do something a little bit different than other yoga studios as well, trying to make us stand out and have a bit of a brand around our playlist classes and our hip hop yoga classes. But I think at the end of the day, like everybody's practicing yoga for a different reason, whether it's for their mind, for their body, for the community, something to do with friends. Everyone's practicing yoga at different points in their lives for different reasons too. And sometimes it just means like throwing on some Biggie Smalls and turning the music up and getting out of your head. Like, cause I know for me at times that's what helped me. So.
Absolutely. You know, music is pretty powerful, right? And that's why lots of times when people ask, you know, hey, what's your favorite music? It's not usually just one answer, right? It depends on our mood, our feelings, right? And so it's great to hear that you've been able to do that where you felt different types of music and styles and how to integrate that with yoga. So that's awesome. How did you feel after your first yoga class, and how did you feel this influences or impacts the space you create for your clients?
My first yoga class was a very long time ago. And I don't think that there was ever really like one class specific experience that changed or shaped me. Not even as a teacher, but as a person as well. Because I think when I first started, it was that physical experience. And then I think there were a few classes where I started to feel that emotional, spiritual connection to it. And that's when that started to change my life a little bit. And I was also introduced to a style of yoga that was different than what I was used to practicing, this kind of flow style that we teach mainly at SoulSpeak. And it was just like such a way to be creative with your body and like move in a way that expressed what you were feeling. That's another reason why I loved the complement of music to it, because it just is such an expression of your soul, like not to be cliche with the soul speak, but that was my whole kind of thing. Was it just really like, it just felt good. It was really a way to like get those feelings that you're feeling out of your body in a physical way. And not only like with practicing, but also with teaching, like it just was such a fun way to be creative, while also moving your body and taking care of your mind as well. So yeah, I guess that's how I would say I felt after my first yoga class with that experience. But I think it also is just kind of like the progression of a lot of different classes and different teachers as well. So
Awesome. Great. For our listeners, what advice would you give to someone who is just starting out on their yoga journey?
I would say definitely enjoy it. The beginning of your yoga journey is like the best part. For my roommates that I lived with when I started my yoga journey, like they hated me so much. I'd be up at 6 a.m. going to classes, and I'd come home and I'd be doing headstands for an hour in the living room, like making noise and waking them up. And you just kind of get obsessed with it because it feels so good. And you're like, I just want to soak in everything that's happening and like make this a part of my life. So like, just enjoy it. And don't give up if you kind of feel like you've hit a plateau. Because sometimes I know people will practice and they're like, okay, I feel like I've gotten everything that I need to get out of it. Like, I don't know where to like move on from here. Like I've said a million times in this, there's so many different avenues of yoga to discover, whether it means trying a new teacher or like a different style of yoga, or just kind of going down a different path, like trying out meditation or anything. Just really allow yourself to explore and really allow yourself to soak up everything that's happening. Don't feel like you need to come or like you need to leave class and write down everything that you learned. Like, by all means, bring a journal and write down how you're feeling. But everything that you're learning in this experience is going to stick with you, and you're going to keep it in you, and it's going to come out when you need it. So just enjoy it.
If there was one thing that you could change about the health, wellness, and fitness industry, what would it be?
I think first and foremost, definitely more inclusivity. There's obviously a huge gap in that, and a need for health and wellness to be more accessible for different communities and people and different types of bodies. So that's the main thing. And I know as a studio, we could always be doing better with that. Like every studio can be doing better with that. But it's something that we do place a lot of value on at SoulSpeak, is just trying to have diversity and accessibility for anyone to come and practice. So that's the main thing that I would especially like to see in the health and wellness industry. And I would like to see other studios doing and other teachers. And I think this year, especially, people have seen the need for that and kind of the harm that the wellness industry has caused by not being more accessible. So that's first and foremost, like above all, I think that's the biggest thing. Another thing that really bugs me about the health and wellness industry is like the competitive mindset behind it sometimes. Like, you're not going to a yoga class to compete with someone. Like, your yoga practice is for you, or like if you're going to the gym, like that's for you. And I know people have probably been in this situation before too, where you like go to a yoga class and you feel like the person beside you is like kind of competing with you a little bit, and you're like, what's going on? That's a big reason why we decided not to put mirrors in the studio. A big reason why most of the classes are dark, candlelit, because I really like that idea that the practice is for you and it should be about focusing on yourself. So that's another thing that I would change, just trying to get rid of that competitive mindset and doing whatever we can to eliminate that, because I don't think it helps with the health and wellness journey that people are on.
Absolutely, for sure. And what is your favorite quote that you live by?
I'm going to say two. So a quote that I like, I guess would say I live by. There's this beautiful book by Ram Dass called Be Here Now. anyone's read it. It's not like a book so much that you read. It's more of a visual book with almost poetry in it. But there's one quote by Ram Dass that says, you can do it like it's a great weight, or you can do it like it's a part of the dance. And anytime I'm feeling stuck or like something in my life is really heavy, I try to think about that. And I'm like, you can think about it like it's this thing that's weighing you down, or you can think about it like it's this thing that's kind of pushing you through where you need to be, like it's this dance. So that's one of my favorite ones. And I think it really can relate to everyone in so many different ways. Another quote that I'm going to say, just because I say this at the end of every single yoga class that I teach, I stole it from my mom. She says it at the end of her classes too, but it goes, may you be guided by your highest self in times of challenge, and may you find unexpected joy in unexpected places. And yeah, it's just such a lovely thing to say. Like, it's just, I think it's so beautiful. We've actually had students who have gotten that tattooed on themselves because it's just such a great reminder. Like, there's just always joy in everything. And anytime that I feel like, again, I'm stuck or like I'm looking for answers, it may sound kind of funny, but I'm like, what would my highest self do? Like, what would my highest self guide me to do? And I think that's a really good thing to reflect on, because it's really easy to get caught up in being influenced by competitive factors or things that aren't really serving you. So yeah, that's another one.
That's beautiful, both of those quotes. So thanks for sharing. So this kind of brings us to the end here. Where can our listeners go to find out more about you?
Couple websites, SoulSpeakYoga.ca. There's a bio on there, so you can learn about my favorite local businesses and whatnot. Like, we have some cute little questions on there. I also have my media company, so you can learn a little bit more about me on there. It's ErinHarrisMedia.com. That business is more so for digital media consulting. So I do social media management and website building and stuff like that for brands, just kind of on the side. So there's a little bit more information about me there, or SoulSpeak online. All my videos are up on there. If you want to try a class, you can try it for free for 2 weeks. So you can see if you like it, or come to the studio when we open and try a class. And I love meeting people that way as well. So
Erin, it's been really great having you on the show today, and we look forward to having you again.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. This was fun, and it's nice to chat about the studio. I'm missing it so much. So
thank you for listening to the Living Your Greatness podcast. If this show has added value, please subscribe, leave a rating, and make a review.